Hey everybody, hope you're well, and it's James here over at Crypto Rookies, and today we're going to be looking at the practical uses of blockchain that are happening right now within the grocery and retail market. I'm feeling So for me, this is a very important topic about how blockchain is being used in the food and grocery industry. Because if blockchain can get into that particular realms, now we're talking mass adoption. Now we're talking everyday things. So how many times do you go to the shops, you buy your milk, your bread, your fish fingers, whatever it is that you buy? You know, we do that every day. And how can blockchain be incorporated into that? And we'll see that there are huge brands that are already doing projects, getting involved, and I'm going to talk about some of these today to just give you a bit of an insight into what's happening behind the scenes. So why is blockchain important within this particular industry? It saves time. So that's critical because time is money within the grocery industry. It's also at the moment having a very tough time. So if you look at Tesco's, Morrison's, some of these other guys, they're very much struggling against the growth of the discounter stores like your Aldi's and Lidl's, obviously offering sometimes products at nearly half the price of pretty much the same quality. So these elements are very critical to these guys in terms of saving time and also saving money as well. And through the process of using blockchain, they can remove costs dramatically. So in terms of sometimes you need to trace a product because there's a recall, there's something that's gone wrong. Now currently with some of the data, it takes many days, even a week, to get this data. And obviously with blockchain, it's a lot more accessible. You can do things a lot quicker, and therefore you reduce costs massively. It also increases the trust between a customer and a supermarket that they use, because they're able to trace where that product has come from. They know that it's, for instance, it's come from a farm where people are paid adequate funds or wages, and they'll be able to really understand where that product's come from. Things like Coca Life is probably a project where people want to know where their cocoa's come from. A lot of the farmers in Africa, those type of things, making sure that these guys are paid, and also that the quality of the food that we get is coming from, reputable places as well. The other thing, it reduces then risk to supermarkets, to brands, because if something does go wrong, they can trace things a lot quicker. Last thing you want is a product where something is damaged or wrong, or maybe even contain a contaminant, and that goes out to the public because you don't have the resources or the blockchain information to be able to trace that quick enough to potentially stop it, especially after it's been tested and maybe some of the products already been shipped. So there's a whole bunch of things here of why blockchain is important within this particular industry. Like I've talked about many times, supply chain, gambling. There are a few industries where blockchain is going to be revolutionary, and some other industries where blockchain is going to just have no impact at all. But this particular industry is going to be huge. So just a couple of key facts for you. So in 2016-17, the Food Standard Agency in the UK investigated 2,265 food contaminant incidents. This is up 30% on previous years. Now, we could look at particular companies have made a lot of cutbacks, therefore there's more pressure on people to do things, therefore more mistakes happen potentially. But the key thing is they're up year on year. Also, the World Organization estimates that nearly 1 in 10 people become ill every year from eating contaminated foods, and that's 420,000 people dying as a result of that. So this problem is quite big. We might not see it day to day, and it might not get the airtime that where someone's gunned someone down or stabbed them in the street, but it's a huge issue. And you would have probably seen something about Two Sisters Food Group where they had chicken, where they would send it out to a particular retailer like Lidl or Tesco's. They would send it back saying it's not what we ordered, or it was too much, or whatever it was. Then they would take out the packets and they would repackage the chicken and send it out to one of the other retailers that they were working with. So Two Sisters were working with about 3 or 4 different retailers, and all the chicken was exactly the same, but it was under different brands, but they were just repackaging it when it was coming back, which they totally shouldn't have done. And they were doing that. There's a load of videos online if you want to check that out. But using blockchain, this sort of stuff just wouldn't happen. So one of the biggest supermarkets in the whole world is Walmart. And Walmart have been doing a whole bunch of research into the blockchain. And the reason for that is because they want to manage the end-to-end supply chain process. So because, especially within a big company, Cadbury's is the same as people know, I work there, is that these processes are incredibly long. There's a lot of touch points throughout the whole business, from the very instance where the product is grown, cut down, shipped, it goes, loads of processes, it's then turned into a product, it then goes out to the customer. And to manage that whole process is incredibly complex, very complex. I work with it day in, day out sometimes. And it can be a headache, really, trying to source things, what's gone wrong, why things haven't been produced properly, and all the rest of it. However, Walmart have been working on mangoes and pork, especially in the US and China. And they've been sort of using this as sort of a test bed or test case to see how well it's really worked. They've also hooked up with IBM and Tsinghua Uni in Beijing to obviously work through some of these problems and get some solutions that they can put on the table that they can use within their business. And from what I'm hearing is that it's been quite successful, and they're looking at another 8 product lines to roll this out on as part of their trial. So we're going to have a look at the mango supply chain. Now we're going to look at the end-to-end process here in a basic format, but just to give you an idea of what's happening. So it takes about 5 to 8 years for a tree to start producing mature fruit. Once that happens, it's then picked, mainly in the farms of southern Mexico. It's then sent to processing plants where things are just put into bags, they're peeled, they're diced, they're sliced, they're dried. Lots of different things happen here. And this is where shelf lives, maybe if they go through other processes, they might have a longer shelf life. And then once that happens, then the product is then shipped to stores via their own logistics team. And then it goes into stores, it's put in back rooms or a chiller room, and then it goes out to the shop floor, and us as consumers, then we see the mangoes and we pick them up. Now, in the general supply chain, it takes, like Walmart have already done these trials, it took about 7 days to trace the origins of a mango from shop floor back to tree planting. That's a long time, that's a lot of people hours, in terms of trying to find out where it is. Probably a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, very time consuming and actually very, very costly. With the trials that they've been doing using the blockchain, they've cut that 7 days down to 2.2 seconds. I mean, already you can see the benefits and why someone like Walmart, maybe Tesco's and some of the other guys will start looking at this, because it is really key and it saves so much time and money that they're not going to be able to ignore this. If you've not heard of Carrefour, if you're in the UK, you probably haven't, but these guys are absolutely huge everywhere else in the world. I think they've just done some form of deal with Tesco's, but these guys have brought Europe's first food blockchain into action. Now, these guys are tracking free-range chickens. Now, this is really important because people want to know where their products have come from. They want to know that it's genuinely free-range and not just been stuck in a shed and fed all sorts of steroids and all sorts of stuff, and that it is the real deal. And that quality is really important to us. And we've seen this in a lot of trends that are happening with our food, where we're actually trading up to extra special and all these types of things. But what these guys are doing is that you can scan the QR code and you can trace where that product's come from. Now, I see some benefits here in terms of, I think this will just become the trend where people will not want to know where their products come from. They want to know it's real good quality and that the animals have been cared for as well. So I think that's incredibly important. I think the only question mark here is how easy is it to copy those codes onto another product. Say you've got a case of it and you just copied it. Potentially, there's some question marks there. I think as technology progresses, I think those issues will be ironed out very, very quickly, because there's always solutions coming up. As part of Carrefour's plan, the 2022 transformation plan includes blockchain, and that's a huge part of that plan. So we're already going to see a whole bunch of use cases for blockchain within the grocery industry. So even Alibaba.com is getting involved, and they're really focused on stopping food fraud. Now, these guys are working with PwC, and they did a whole bunch of surveys with a whole bunch of branded companies. And the thing that they said, 39% of the companies said it was easy to fake their food, which is, in some cases you think, okay, well, yeah, certain products are quite easy to copy. But 42% had no way of detecting the fraud. And that's probably the scariest statistic that comes out of this. That, okay, we know that it might be easy to fake, but there is actually no way of actually tracing that it is. And the only way we could do this is through the blockchain, and this will stop a lot of those things happening, because it happens all the time. I think the biggest one I would say that I see in the industry is with booze and things like vodka. This illegal vodka being sold into the, not maybe Tesco's, but into the smaller shops. They buy it because it's on, they get a special deal on it. They then put it out, and then people are going blind and all sorts of stuff. And it just isn't good for business, it isn't good for the brand, and it isn't good for the local shopkeepers either. So having something in place like this would really solve that problem. So one of the biggest trends that I've seen is online shopping. The first one is obviously Amazon. It's huge. It's literally destroyed the UK high street. Nobody goes out anymore and down the high street to buy stuff. A couple of clicks, boom, next day it's at your front door. Same with online shopping. It is increasing dramatically. People don't want to go out. They don't want to run, take the kids and mess about around the shops. They're all kicking off or whatever. They don't want that. They want simple, easy, and convenient. And therefore, online shopping is growing massively. Now, INS Grocery are coming into this space. They're bringing a whole bunch of benefits. And I'll just talk about these very, very quickly. The first thing is they're going from manufacturer to a fulfillment warehouse straight to the consumer. So the first thing that they can bring to the table is, one, a massive cost saving, and two, reducing food miles and saving the planet and lots of other different things. Because they can do that, they only have to charge about 2%. Now, normally when you deal with a retailer, you're talking 20% plus. So first of all, there is a huge saving for the manufacturers. So there is a big incentive to use this platform, because you can be more profitable or you could be more competitive with your pricing. Not only that, because people are using the INS token within the ecosystem, manufacturers can use that token to market, basically. So they can have a new product. It might be at full price, but if you buy that product, then you will get so many INS tokens for purchasing that. You keep your INS tokens, and then you can use them on your next shop, and you can get money off your groceries, which is great. But not only that, another element of the blockchain world is data. Within this ecosystem, all of your shopping habits, data, times you buy, what you bought, is all captured within the system because it's on the blockchain. Now, that is incredibly valuable information. As working for a supplier, we pay a lot of money to data companies to get that data so we can analyze shopper habits, what's in trend, what's happening. With this particular system, it will do it automatically, and I think it's every 10 minutes or so. You'll be able to have refreshed data, so you can check live of what's happening with your particular products on a promotion, or just your base sales as such. So it's a real handy tool. I can see this absolutely flying. And also you've got the loyalty program, so it's like your Tesco Club Card points. And these things are very familiar to us. So it's not like they're trying to invent the wheel. What they've done is they've just looked at where they can save costs, which makes it better for the manufacturer, but also better for the consumer buying the product, because now they can save up to 30% on brands because of the way and how they're operating. And that's really offering the manufacturers a cheaper route to market. And also the other thing is, you need to think about is, if you're Tesco's, you buy the product from a supplier, they ship it to a warehouse, then that goes to maybe another warehouse, then it goes to store, and then by the time you buy it online, then somebody else has to deliver it. So the food miles, the costs, the overheads are absolutely huge. With this particular system, this potentially could wipe out Tesco's online, Ocado, within a matter of years. And other online businesses around the world. INS was one of the first projects that I ever advised for within the UK, helping them, connecting them to different brands. Because I looked at the platform, and I think, one, it was in my realms of expertise, and two, I could connect them with lots of different brands to help them out. And again, speak to Peter on a regular basis. Fantastic project, fantastic team, and I think this project will do incredibly well. So who doesn't like an incentive scheme? You get your club card points, you get your Nectar points, you get your Argos points, you get all different types of points with all these different cards. It's very good and we love it. And we've got, if you open your wallet, you've probably got 1 million cards from a whole bunch of retailers. Now, there's a project that's called Rakuten Coin. They're an e-commerce business already in Japan, and they're trying to create a super point scheme. Now they're using the blockchain to also use this as a cryptocurrency. I've done a little bit of research into this one. Personally, I'm not sure. I think there's already strong programs out there like INS Grocery where, they only have to add things like TVs and go a bit down the Amazon route where they don't just do food, and they're going to wipe out most programs out there. They'll be the Amazon of the blockchain shopping world. However, the big trend that we're seeing is that there are other businesses out there that are already established creating their own blockchain, and this creates a lot of question marks because a lot of projects are out there trying to build their own sort of supply chain blockchain and things like this, but there are companies, huge companies, employing people already to create their own. So this sort of makes those projects really redundant, or they're going to have to deal with some of the smaller players in the market, and therefore they won't be worth that much. So let's have a look at some case studies. So there is a Whopper coin in Burger King, and that is in Russia. And apparently these guys are using the crypto-based loyalty program. So basically when people come in, they're spending their rubles, and when they spend so much, then they get a Whopper coin. And obviously they get that in tokens, and that's going to their wallet. So we're already seeing people use their own incentive schemes. And obviously Burger King is huge. I'm sure it won't be long before McDonald's is on the case too. So there's a UK-based platform called Provenance. Now what these guys are doing is authenticating that tuna is caught in Indonesia. And there's this whole thing about line fishing and also sort of mass net fishing. With the mass net fishing, we know that there's dolphins caught when, we don't really want to catch the dolphins, but they get caught in the nets and they drown and all the rest of it. It's not very nice, and it's not a great way to catch tuna. But we've also seen the line fishing, where you probably see a whole bunch of people on the boats, they're chucking the rods in, and every 2 seconds you can see a tuna flying through the air. That's line caught. It's obviously a lot more friendly for the dolphins, and people want to know these things. It's very important these days of where food has come from. But a lot of this tuna is delivered into Japanese restaurants, and these guys are really getting hot on where their food comes from. So we already know that Amazon are huge. They've also got their web service arm. So they have a startup called Kaleido. Now that came from an incubator project called Consensus. Now I've already seen a competitor in the market called Effect AI. But basically what these guys are trying to do, they're trying to allow their AWS customers really easy access to blockchain, like literally download, click of a button type stuff. So these guys are already working on a lot of these solutions. Now, will the competitors be able to take on Amazon? We'll just have to wait and see. Next, we have Maersk. Now, these guys are a Dutch shipping company. They've completed their first cargo test, which is really interesting, and apparently it's gone quite well. And they've obviously had to interact with the Dutch and also Homeland Securities in the US as well. And they've been able to manage this shipping data remotely, accurately, which is really interesting because what we're starting to see is the big brands come out and investigate and invest into blockchain solutions. Now, this causes some problems potentially because what we normally find is that within the marketplace, you have something called Pareto's law. Now, 80% of the companies will generate 20% of the value, and 20% of the companies will generate 80% of the value. And this is when guys like Maskwall will sit. They'll have the money to be able to invest in these projects. They are making profit, but what they're trying to do is be more traceable, more transparent, and more efficient and more cost saving. So therefore they can be even more profitable in the future, especially for their shareholders and lots of different people, and also the company owners, I assume. However, what we will see is projects that are reviewed recently, things like the Morpheus network, they'll be left with the other 80% of the market, but they'll only be generating 20% of the value. So maybe some of the use cases where these guys say, oh yeah, it's a $25 billion market, they're going to have an incredibly small slice of that pie. And within that small slice of pie, there's another 10 or even 20 different cargo blockchain companies. So I think there's some real challenges on for the new startups as well, because some of these big companies are really starting to get on board. So just a few things to consider as we move forward. There are 4 forces to change, and these are the 4 key world trends at this moment in time. The first one is the societal shift. So things like an aging population, people are living longer and longer, like the urbanization, time and poverty, health and well-being. That is a huge trend. People more focused on being healthy, getting to the gym, drinking more water, all these types of things. We're also seeing altering authority, so things like the data regulation. We've just seen some huge changes recently with the GDPR, and also big business and startups. Now, what we're seeing with little startups is there's all these little brands coming up, and they're doing incredibly well. Things like grenade bars, these protein bars, they're starting to take on, the Maxi Muscles of the world. They literally dominated that marketplace, and grenade bars are absolutely flying. So these small, agile companies that really resonate with the younger generation are really starting to get some traction. We're also seeing transformative technology. Artificial intelligence is huge. We've read a whole bunch of stuff that Elon Musk talks about here. We've got big data, Internet of Things, robotics. There are huge transformations there. So the other element is resource resilience. Now, as a company, people are always looking to make efficiencies, be more profitable, save on costs, all these types of things. But the other key question mark is, what does the future workforce look like, and what are the skill gaps? Now, I read some stuff quite recently where they were saying in the next 10 to 20 years, 7 out of 10 people will work in IT and technology, which is just absolutely crazy. If we went back sort of like 100 years, it'd be 7 out of 10 people worked in agriculture. So we've seen a huge change in how we operate and how business is done these days. So I think there are two really big transformative technologies. The first one is automation and AI. Now, I think AI is exciting, but at the same time it's quite scary, because it's like, what does the future hold? How many people are going to be put out of work because of these things? Then what do they go and do next? But at the same time, if we look at things like the Amazon warehouses, I mean, their sort of health and safety records are a bit shocking. People are getting injured in the warehouses. They're running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Now, if robots are doing it and it's all based on AI, people aren't getting hurt, but what do they go and do next? That's the big question mark. But automation efficiency is going to happen. There's so many projects now that are rolling out. I've even invested in a lot of these projects as well. One of them's just done one of the biggest robotics deal in the world. And, I'm getting right behind it because AI is the future. So the next key one is connectivity. Now, everybody now has a smartphone. And with your smartphone, you can do just about everything. You can run a business, you can do your banking, you can pay for stuff on your phone. You can download, upload, communicate in various different formats, via the telephone, WhatsApp. This isn't going away. This is only going to get more integrated into our daily lives in terms of how we do everything. And literally, I don't even see probably PCs in the future. Everything will be just done off our phones. Now, our phones might just get bigger, like iPads pretty much, but it'll just be that one thing that we take around. I've even seen some technology where they've got like little chips that you put in your hand, and that will do everything as well. Not too sure about that, but but this connectivity piece is going to be absolutely huge. So I hope today's video has been useful about how blockchain has been used in the food and grocery industry, and brought to life a couple of examples of where it's happening, and also sort of some of my theories on where I think things are going as well. As always, guys, you can check us out on social media, but please check out our Crypto Rookies website as well. As always, guys, really appreciate you tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video.